This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Thanks, everybody, for downloading this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. What a week to broadcast. So much drama at Michigan and Michigan State. We have to break it all down. Lots to get into with the Detroit Lions. Oh, my goodness, the Hard Knocks finale. Here today on this edition of Doc and Jock is my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Boy, cuz, do I got a lot to share with you. Riding in from the Lions. The locker room that the Lions got set up is completely different than when Matt Patricia was there. When I say that it's pimped out for players, can't wait to tell you about it, bro. It's kind of, look, I don't want to be an alarmist, but Dan Campbell might be running a country club up in there. Bro, what's happening?
Come on, country club? Dan Campbell's salt of the earth. What are you talking about? You watched Hard Knocks. I watched Hard Knocks. There is nothing country club about Dan Campbell. That guy chews dip and he eats sunflower seeds like he's going out of town. Come on now. What are you talking about? Break it all down for me.
Yes, you walk in. You got to remember, with Matt Patricia, it was stripped down. No TVs, no pool tables, no ping pong tables. Bro, you walked in there and it was like Gameland in the center there. It was crazy. It was like they had TVs going, video games going, big screen TVs going, chairs and couches. It was comfy. Like before, you'd stand there and it was 45 minutes and be like, ugh. Bro, we started at 3 and that 45 minutes was spectacular. It was just sitting there watching. Everybody was relaxed. It was completely different. It was as if the guys were done and hanging out with the fellas in the locker room. So what a difference the thing makes. So it's very interesting to see what's going on with the Detroit Lions and everything going on. Now, look, you realize they have ping pong tournaments. They want to be cozy, happy life, makes the players feel better. And I understand it too. I guess this is the standard, bro. It's cozy. It's cozy to give these players the ultimate comfort. I don't know if you saw the finale of Hard Knocks, but it almost seemed like the players were apologizing to Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes that they didn't do good enough to make the team. It is so different. It was like relaxed, chill. Everybody was happy. Everybody was just like, man, because I came to get used to that. I like that little bit of sternness from Patricia. It felt like work, but this felt like being in, I guess, what a sports locker room would be like if it's all fun. You think that's okay? Look, it's player friendly. That's the best way to put it. Can't give details about too much more than that, but it's a player friendly locker room. Holy cow.
I mean, doesn't that speak volumes, though, about what you have with this coaching staff and this front office? When you're bringing players in to tell them that either they're A, not good enough to make your roster, or B, they don't fit what you're trying to do, and they're saying, hey, sorry, coach. I mean, that's exactly what it was when you watched Hard Knocks. It felt like every guy who walked in there was basically apologizing for not being good enough, not being able to play hard enough, or not being able to meet whatever their expectations was. I think that's a great sign. If you're a Lions fan, you've wanted something like this forever and a day. I think it's a fantastic sign. Just juxtapose that with, like you're saying, with Matt Patricia. There were guys who were buying their own plane and bus tickets to get out of here. There were guys who were doing whatever it took to get traded, to get cut, to get away from here. There were guys who would not sign another contract because they had pushed them so far and pushed them to their limit. So I think it's a fantastic sign. And look, if you don't know this, you need to understand this. Guys will go out and they will play for a coach. Guys will go out there and give more than what they have if they believe in their coach and they believe in the leadership and they trust what is happening, if they trust the process and they trust what is going on. I think for the first time, if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you can almost feel a culture shift. You can almost feel a changing of the guard. You can almost feel a team rallying behind a coach, rallying behind a front office, and getting on board. It really does feel like for the very first time that everybody is pulling in the same direction. You couldn't say that a couple years ago. I really do believe that this regime is different. And I know we've said this 1,001 times before, but this one feels, and it has the appearance that it is completely counter to anything that we've ever experienced. And I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's good stuff. So now we have an opportunity to see what this team is all about. It's week 1. Bro, capacity crowd. I think Hard Knocks really hit the intended plan for the Detroit Lions in regards to reaching the crescendo of positivity and hope. I think that people are realistic. They want to see good football. They want to see a football team that plays at a high level. They want to see a football team that obviously wins more than 3 games. But I'm curious. I think you are as real as I am. How good do you think this Lions football team actually can be? Because Dan Campbell actually said it today. If you go back on Wednesday and see the media session, he said, look, Hard Knocks is not reality. The reality of football is the stuff we do every single day, the preparation that we do to get out there on the football field. I think this football team is young on purpose, is set up in a way to steadily grow in a rebuild. They know they're not playoff ready. Otherwise, he would have said it. When he was asked on Hard Knocks, what is this football team? His other coaches said more competitive. He just said can and will. And I just think he wants to see his football team make better plays. This is a 6-7 win football team, really, really, when you look at it honestly and not through the lens of a fan.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's 6-7 wins. But I think what you're going to get is you're going to get a really competitive team that's going to play hard on every down. I think what you will have with this team comparing it to last year's team, I think you're going to have a bit better of a defense. I think you're going to have a quarterback who has a better understanding of the offense and a better control of the offense. I think offensively, this team's going to be able to hang points on other teams. Whereas last year, it really felt like there were games where this team struggled to score, where things just kind of bogged down and they weren't able to get points on the board. It seemed like they would get into the red zone and then everything would just kind of peter out. I think this team's going to be able to strike deep. I think this team's going to be able to run the ball. I think when the field gets shortened, you hear a lot of quarterbacks talk about it. When the field gets shortened, when they're inside the red zone, basically within the 10-yard line, it becomes much harder to score because everything is so condensed and so compact. I think they have the weapons to be able to put points on the board. Now, are they going to be able to put enough points on the board to where they're going to offset whatever happens with the defense? That's where we end up with a 6-7 win team. I don't think the defense is far enough along, but I think this offense is dramatically different, and I think it's dramatically better than it was last year. I think defensively, you are a little bit stronger in certain areas, and I think the one area where this team has really taken a step forward, and you're going to call me crazy because I know everybody's going to say wide receiver. The wide receiver room is obviously better. I also think the quarterback room is obviously better. But I think the one place where this team has really taken steps forward, and you're going to see a little bit of a strengthening of this team. I'm not going to call it a complete strength, but a strengthening of this team is going to be in the linebacking core. Now, you add in Malcolm Rodriguez, who I think is going to become Detroit's favorite player. You add him in. You've got Alex Anzalone, so he's back for his second stint. Now, you have Derek Barnes, who takes a second year and another step forward. I think that makes them better, makes them deeper, that's for sure. Chris Board, we'll see what he gives and what he can deliver. But I think this linebacking core is going to be stronger than it was last year, and I think that's going to help this team out. And I think it's going to help put them in better positions, especially late in games. Doesn't mean that they're going to win those games, but I think overall, over the long haul of the season, they're going to win a few more games because of that linebacking core.
I'm excited to see Jared Goff work with these wide receivers, arguably the most improved unit on this football team. You look at it and you say DJ Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, Quintez Cephas. You realize that, Reynolds, with the familiarity that he has with Goff and the opportunity that will be presented when Jameson Williams does return, I think is spectacular to look at in regards to the opportunity that this Lions football team has with the opportunity to play with these wide receivers. I'm excited. That will be the part of this football team that will keep them in games because of the youth of that defense and the potential, just the tough nature that it entails to try and really limit opposing offenses. I'm excited. I think it's the wide receivers that's the most improved, and it would have been the offensive line, but they're battling injuries.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too. Haloti Vaitai again with another injury this year. It almost seems like this offensive line, which obviously the strength of this team, I think it's the one complete unit that it has. It can't ever seem to be on the field in the way it's originally constructed. Last year, we never got to see it the way it was supposed to be put together. You had to move pieces around. This year, we haven't got to game one yet, and you're already having to move pieces around. Yeah. It's really kind of concerning how many injuries this offensive line has had.
Yes, it's tough because you realize, you have a couple different options with Stenberg, with Tommy Kramer. You have opportunities now to replace I don't think they're going to shift. I think that's all smoke that Dan Campbell's throwing out there. I think you just plug in a player at right guard and you see what happens. There's no way you're going to see Penei Sewell, even though you're hearing
I think that would be stupid if they did that.
They would be stupid, and it's not going to happen. They're all understanding what's going on. It's gamesmanship. I believe it's going to be either Tommy Kramer or Logan Stenberg earning a start at right guard. You keep everything and everybody comfortable, and everybody can continue to work. But you got to remember, Vaitai is 29, and there's opportunities for youth, and there's an opportunity potentially as an upgrade. You never know. You don't know until you see what's happening. So the wide receivers is going to be key against the Eagles, and we're going to talk about the Lions Week 1 matchup here in just a few minutes. But the question that I think has been eluded that people don't know about, that they keep asking about, that the Dan Campbell keeps punting, but I think you can read between the lines. Ben Johnson called offensive plays the entire preseason. And you can see when Dan Campbell jokes around and says, well, I feel like I want to do it and things like that. He's going to have input. He's going to be in the ear of Ben Johnson. But there's no way, if you're Ben Johnson and it's your first go-around, your offense, you're working with Jared Goff, that you're just going to be there standing on the sideline. He's calling the plays. I fully believe that's the case because it will allow Dan Campbell to observe a lot more. I think that he took over the offense last year out of necessity to really showcase how aggressive he wants to be. But right now, Campbell and Johnson are in lockstep. There is no doubt about it. I would be floored if Sunday, Week 1, capacity crowd, and Dan Campbell's calling offensive plays. I think it's the Ben Johnson show, and Dan Campbell needs to step back and run the game so that he can make fourth down decisions and game management calls at the highest of levels.
Yeah, I think it's Ben Johnson's. I really do believe it's Ben Johnson's ball to fumble here. Yes. If Ben Johnson just isn't getting the job done, I think that's when you see Dan Campbell step in. Dan Campbell really strikes me as a head coach who kind of realizes, look, I've got my job, you've got your job, you go do your job, and I'm not going to mess with your job. We're not going to talk about your job until I have to address what is going on with your job. And you can look as far as what took place with Anthony Lynn last year, when things really kind of got critical and the offense was stagnating and nobody was on the same page. It looked absolutely abysmal. What happened? Dan Campbell got involved. Dan Campbell started calling plays, for better or for worse, whatever it was. Dan Campbell then took the reins over. I think you'll kind of see something similar here with Ben Johnson. This is Ben Johnson's, like I said, ball to fumble. This is his ball of yarn. This is going to be his offense. This is going to basically be his offensive structure and his play calls. There, obviously, head coach always has final say on something. So if Ben Johnson calls in a pass play, and Dan Campbell's like, no, I feel like we need to run it here, Dan Campbell can obviously overrule him and supersede whatever his play call is. But that being said, I don't think Dan Campbell's that kind of guy. Dan Campbell's going to basically allow you to fail. And it will be Ben Johnson's ball to run with. And I think it'll work out. I think it'll be really, really good. I mean, you look at what happened last year. And look, I know we keep kind of going back to last year, but again, first game of the season, this is what we have to go off of because I'm not counting anything I've seen in the preseason. There's not a whole lot you can really garner from the preseason. You go back to the end of last year, that offense really kind of got rolling and really kind of got clicking. And Ben Johnson was the guy who was the most creative and the most orchestrative in those offensive meeting rooms, and the guy who was really helping to put that playbook together. And look, Jared Goff has bought in. It seems like the wide receivers and the running backs have bought in. It looks like everybody on that offense has bought in. You've seen it in Hard Knocks. I think it might have been episode 3, maybe episode 4. There was a pass play, and everybody's calling Ben Johnson a genius for the play that took place where they scored on their defense. Like everybody has bought into this guy. So it's really up to him to not screw it up. I really do believe he will succeed in this role. It's just to what degree. And honestly, this is me putting the cart before the horse. I really would love to see him succeed with a rookie quarterback next year. Not this year, next year. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm just saying, I think it'd be really interesting if they got one of those elite quarterbacks and they were able to do something there. But like I said, putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, we got about 5-6 minutes. I definitely want to get your sense of how you see this game Sunday playing out. I think it's going to be real tough, bro. The matchups are tough. A.J. Brown, Goddard, Jalen Hurts, purring offensive line. Nick Sirianni's got this thing moving in a good direction. It's a tough matchup. The Lions just don't match up defensively at the same level. They're going to make plays. The only chance I see is if the momentum carries from the fans to just the entire situation and this team plays balls out. I've said it all week. They got to play from ahead. It might be just as simple as win the coin toss, take the football, and put your offense out on the football field. This offense needs to control the clock, run the football, muck this game up so that it's a game in the 20s. If you let the Eagles make this a track race and they're able to run the football and extend plays on third down, it's going to be a wrap. I see this being close, but I see this in the neighborhood of like 33-27 in favor of the Eagles, with them just being a little bit ahead because of the fact that they just got just a little bit more talent across the board. And you guys got to remember, they just traded for a 24-year-old safety that can make plays in Gardner Johnson. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson now gets added to the secondary that features Darius Slay. Are you kidding me right now? I just have a very hard time predicting that it's going to be the Lions winning this game. I see an 0-1 start, but, I'll be hopeful. I see after 2 games the Lions being 1-1, but I just have a very hard time seeing the Lions winning against the Eagles. I see a loss.
Yeah, and I think what ends up happening is the setup for the Lions, like what they do well and what they don't do well, I just don't think matches up with what the Eagles do extremely well, and that's run the ball. The Lions don't do a good enough job of stopping the run, and I think that's going to where this game's going to be won and lost. I think the Eagles are going to be able to pound the rock, and they've got a multi-headed monster for the run game, whether it's Jalen Hurts as the quarterback, whether it's their 3 and 4 running backs that they'll throw at you. Add to that, they've got a little bit of a souped-up passing game here with A.J. Brown. So I think what you have here, and look, another year for Jalen Hurts in this offense, expecting him to take a step forward. I think what they're going to throw at the Detroit Lions, and again, I feel like the defense is the weak link on this team. I don't think they're going to be able to really stop them or at least contain them. I don't think we're going to have a massacre like there was last year. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I do believe it's going to be a much closer game. I do think this offense is going to be able to put up points on the Eagles' defense. But I think in the end, the Eagles' run game will triumph and will basically run down the Lions' defense. I'm looking final score, maybe 34-31. Again, I think it's going to be a close one. I think the Lions will hang in there. And I think a last-second field goal makes it look a little bit closer than it probably really was.
Absolutely. What do you need to see to make you satisfied for the 3 hours that you're going to sit and take in this football game? What do you need to see to check off the boxes so that the JOCK, the Jock, is happy to give a quality first grade in the first contest for the Lions?
I need to see this offense look efficient. I think too many times last year when this team bogged down, when this team would lose games, when things just didn't go right, the offense just kind of, again, stagnated. It just stalled out, and it really seemed like nobody was on the same page. I need to see this offense be on time. I need to see this offense move the ball down the field. Look, if you stall out in the red zone, fine. As long as you're coming away with some points, I think it'll be okay. I do need to see touchdowns, that being the case, but I think it'll be okay if it stalls out here and there. Defensively, I just want to see them have a bit of a puncher's chance. I want to see them be able to withstand that blow, and I want to see them be able to force a couple of turnovers here or there. I want to see them be able to get to the quarterback. I mean, look, Aiden Hutchinson, I'm expecting to be able to have a sack, and a tackle for loss. And maybe that's a lot. Maybe that's a lot in his first game, but he looked decent in the preseason. I think there's a lot riding on him. I think you can put him in positions to where he can get to the quarterback and he can look effective. I'm expecting him to help collapse that pocket, and I'm expecting him to help contain Jalen Hurts. So these are just a few of the things I need to see. The secondary outlook, I'm going to be watching Jeff Okudah. I need to see Jeff Okudah, I guess, solidify the fact that he should be starting, because I'm still not necessarily buying in. So I need to see a little bit more from Jeff Okudah. And look, again, not expecting a win, but if I can get a couple of boxes checked and we can come back next week and we could talk about that, and we've got stuff that we're looking at, yeah, this team can build off of. This team looks this much better than last year. I think we're in a good spot. What do you have to see from this team?
I just want to see critical plays made late. I don't want to see mistakes. Look, the bane of my existence is just the false start penalties, not getting enough men in the huddle properly, stupid mistakes. The script of losses. If Chase Lucas gets his first pick six and then it's only taken away because of a flag, I don't want to see that shit. Especially with a capacity crowd, this crowd could turn quick because they want to see ruthless aggression, to use a term for those that listen to our wrestling podcast. They want to see a team that pounds the rock, stays healthy, and makes good plays. I just want to see good football. I want to see just back and forth. I don't want to see Goff looking like, having all his passes tipped and missing field goals and just looking sloppy. I want to see a team that looks like they've been coached, not hanging out in the locker room, hanging out in the country club, yucking it up after practice. I want to see a team that gets out there and is hungry and ready to go. That's what I want to see. I want to see cohesion. I want to see passion. And whatever happens, happens. If you're not talented enough, that's the case. This is the second or third youngest football team in the league. So there's going to be times where you're just out-muscled. And this is one of those times. Look at the strength and girth of the Eagles. They got it. Unless they come in totally overconfident, which it doesn't sound like based on Nick Sirianni and his respect for Dan Campbell and the Lions seeing what they did, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good atmosphere. I think the Lions are going to play well. It's just going to be a situation in which you're outmanned, and you're going to have to really see. You'll get a lot of good information, a lot of good nuggets about the Lions' defense from the first game with the Eagles.
Did you just use the word girth?
Girth, yeah, baby, that's the word.
Eagles girth.
Eagles have girth advantage in the side of the Eagles. Just take a look, bro. It's the same basic team along the offensive line and defensive line. They didn't make massive changes, and they pushed around the Lions where Jalen Hurts didn't even have to throw for 200 yards. He ran for 70, and you just handed it off, and they got blown out. So I expect more of the same. I expect them to try and run the football and push the Lions around, because the Lions' defensive front, you can take advantage if Charles Harris and Aiden Hutchinson get pushed to the side or get blocked effectively. So just watch the previews. Check out the Detroit Sports Podcast as we continue to preview everything that's going on with the Detroit Lions. Now, with our final segment, we got to turn our attention to the drama, which is great. Man, that 20 minutes just flew by. We can talk football, you and I, for hours and hours on end, but that was succinct, and I think just enough to give everybody just the palate wetting that they need to get ready for this Sunday. But, bro, we got to turn our attention. And I want to focus more because we got to wait and see with Michigan State. They dealt with some injuries. It wasn't a great performance, but that's what you expect in the first game. You walk away with the W over Western. The sick injuries to two defenders sucks, but I want to see how they rebound before we do a deep dive. So we'll table Michigan State for one more week to see how they do respond to what happened in week one. The primary focus with our last segment here has to be about Michigan, and I want to let you get the floor here because the quarterback situation has become a mess, but I think it's being fueled by J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara. I think these young athletes maybe sometimes get caught up in the whirlwind, which is hard to avoid when you're online and you're seeing things. But J.J. McCarthy kind of putting that Instagram shit out there that talks about people being dragged down by their ego, and Cade McNamara going out there in public and saying, hey, I'm just a little bit shocked that J.J. is the starter in week two. Both have a legitimate gripe. Both have a situation that they may feel like they're entitled, but is this situation something that rises to the level of a red alert for you in regards to the Michigan season. I think that it doesn't matter that if you're going to have a messy situation, this is the year to do it. Michigan scheduled the donkiest, easiest, crappiest schedule in the history of Everdom. They could troll me and you out there, and we can go back and forth and potentially run this offense. That's how easy the schedule is for Michigan. If it was a more competitive, if they started off against Notre Dame, you'd be worried. But it's messy, it's dramatic, but in the end, for me, it doesn't matter because Michigan can handle it. They can roll their third guy out there, and it's going to be gravy for the first 6 weeks of the season.
I think what you have here is you've got a head coach who has basically told you what he's wanted all along. And whether the player that he wants to be his quarterback has been able to exceed his expectations, meet his expectations, or just win the job from the previous quarterback, it just hasn't happened. At this point, I do believe no matter what Cade does, Cade is not going to be your starting quarterback come week 3, 4, 5, all the way into the season. At this point, Jim Harbaugh, I think his actions have said enough. His actions tell you that he wants J.J. McCarthy. Whether J.J. McCarthy is ready for the spot or not, he wants J.J. McCarthy. He feels like he is the better quarterback, which is a little bit perplexing to me because I don't think J.J. has looked all that great. Now, look, Cade didn't look great in his first game, but I also think a lot of this pressure that he's been dealing with from camp, being put in this weird spot where he's going to play the first week, you've got J.J. playing the second week, I think it's kind of taken its toll on him. I think when he throws a pass and it's missed or it's dropped and you've got the fan base booing you for a missed pass or a drop pass, that's got to kind of get to you a little bit. That's got to have you playing a little bit tight. It's got to have you second guessing what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then the fan base cheers for JJ when he gets inserted into the game and they go crazy. And let's be honest, I don't really think he did anything great. I mean, he was 4 for 4 on passes, but like, what were they? Like, what was going on here? You know, I don't think anything. JJ seems to excel when basically everything's at its when there's nothing really on the line. You know, he's coming in garbage time. He's like the defense that he's playing hasn't really been set up to really counter him. To me, it just seems like he kind of it's almost like picking and choosing and picking all the good apples and leaving all the bad apples. It just, to me, it seems very weird that your head coach, the guy who is supposed to be the mastermind, the brainchild, the quarterback whisperer, is playing these games with a quarterback who got you to the Big Ten championship and got you to the college football playoff. JJ cost you a game last year against Michigan State. JJ hasn't done really anything of substance. And for you to be able to kind of be wishy-washy. On top of that, let's talk about these matchups that the Michigan Wolverines are playing in week 1 and week 2. I think Colorado State is a much more difficult opponent. They're not extremely good, but they're much more difficult than Hawaii. Hawaii is like the worst team in college football. There's 119 or 123 schools. They're like 119 or they're 123. Like, they're not very good. I expect JJ to come out and basically look like he's on fire. That's part of the reason why I think he's going to be your quarterback come week 3. It's why I don't think he's going to end up losing his job unless he does something absolutely abysmal. To me, it really seems like the deck was completely stacked against Cade, and there was nothing Cade could do to win. And then he ends up losing. He's going to end up losing his job, and everybody will be like, "Oh, well, see, JJ's the better athlete. JJ's got a higher ceiling." But what is that going to do during the season? Don't be surprised if JJ's your quarterback and you end up struggling. And I think we had them going 10-2 last week. Don't be surprised if they end up going 8-4, 7-5, 9-3. I think the bar for your wins, your win-loss total, I think it comes down if he's your quarterback. And it's just because of reps and because he tries to force the ball sometimes, and that leads to turnovers. And I don't think this defense, and I think the offense is actually really good. I don't think this defense is really good enough for you to constantly put it in bad spots against good teams for them to overcome that. So to me, it just seems like the head coach knew exactly what he wanted to do all along. And he chose to play this out very publicly instead of pulling both of them together and saying, hey, this is the direction we're going, and allowing, if Cade wanted to transfer, allow Cade to transfer. To me, it's incredibly frustrating as a Michigan fan to kind of see this happen. The kid looked like he got knifed in the back on Saturday afternoon. You know, he's up there in the presser and he's like, yeah, it's unusual. And basically, you know what he wanted to say? He was like, yeah, this fucking sucks. Like this really sucks. You know, like what do I have to do? What else do I have to show? It just doesn't make any sense, man. It's absolutely, the way Harbaugh has handled this is absolutely stupid. I can't stand it as a Michigan fan.
It's tough, but I think you get a reprieve because you have two good quarterbacks. Yeah, if you're Cade, you can look at it and say that the Michigan program did you dirty. But bottom line, in anything, in college football, in the NFL, if there's somebody better, and I think maybe Jim is not getting enough credit for handling it beautifully, because you would expect that if he would have named Cade the starter, JJ's gone. And if JJ's named the starter, then Cade's gone. So now you still have these two dudes, and they're not going to be entering the transfer portal anytime soon.
No, that could all still happen. You can enter the transfer portal up until I think it's like week 3 or 4. Yeah. I think after week 4, you can't enter the transfer portal.
But I don't think at this point that that's something that an athlete's going to want to do right in the middle of the season. It could happen. But I think Jim gets credit for handling it at this point in time. It is messy. It's not traditional. But you do have two good quarterbacks. Now, I tend to be more safe. I would have rolled with Cade because you saw what he was able to do. But at the same token, if you can tell me that JJ is mobile, can handle the run, can handle the things that he needs to handle, and can make the deep throw. What I thought was interesting was Cade wasn't really given that many chances to throw it deep in week 1. You know, Colorado State, he didn't play that good, so I could see why JJ got some reps, and JJ definitely sparked the offense. It kind of has the feel of the new hot young toy that you want to play with, but I just get a sense that JJ McCarthy is the better quarterback in terms of what he could become. Cade's better today when you and I are chatting it up before we're done here, but in the future, I think in the biggest moments, I think Cade is the safe bet when you look at what's going on with the Michigan Wolverines. But right now, they're going to play Hawaii, and they're going to kick their ass. It's a 50-point spread. So for me, in the last couple minutes here of the recording, college football was rough because the competitive games didn't involve the Michigan teams. Michigan State, obviously, you knew pretty much that there was going to be a slim chance that they were going to lose. The games that were fun, I thought, were the LSU game. I thought that was great that they lost in that epic fashion. I thought Ohio State playing Notre Dame was really solid, real tight game with Ohio State coming out on top. So college football is back, the NFL is back, and here at Doc and Jock, we're going to have the opportunity in the weeks ahead to be able to break it all down in our own unique way. It was good, a good palate wetting situation right now for the National Football League. I think it's going to be a fun time with the Lions and what we see here. A capacity crowd could take advantage of seeing maybe just enough to propel Dan Campbell. I think it would be great if they could get out to a 1-0 start. It would definitely light up everybody and make everybody happy. But our time this week is coming to an end. Thanks, Adam, for the time. Nice football podcast to get everybody going. Thanks, everybody, for downloading. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Anywhere you find and listen to your favorite audio broadcast, you can find the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, where we bring you content related to Michigan State. We're there, we're bringing it, and we bring the strong opinions. And now it's great to see other major entities recreating networks and really creating great podcast content. So, good situation. That was a quick 35 minutes in and out. I like it. I think that also works as well. We'll try to give you 45 minutes to an hour most weeks, but it really depends on Dan Campbell. If you can get to the podium a little bit faster, then Doc and Jock can go a little bit longer. But for the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaron, going just a little bit into my time with my cousin, but I appreciate it. One of the best broadcasters in town. Thanks, cuz.